Oh, hey, good morning, people. I probably wouldn't have done a live today, but before I get into everything, sharks in the water. But I probably wouldn't have done a video today, but today is a very special day for me. 21 years ago today, me and my wife, me and my fiance, we crossed that line and we became husband and wife. So today is my 21st wedding anniversary. 21 years. Doesn't seem like it's been 21 years. Me and my wife, we had our ups and downs and whatever. And just to let you know, it hasn't been, it's not as bad as a lot of people might think. You know, I know a lot of people have their thoughts on marriage and they have their experiences and everything like that. But it really has not been a bad 21 years. It really hasn't been. Like I said, we've had our struggles, our ups and downs. We had our disagreements and everything. But there was a time where I thought I would never get married because I wasn't seen as attractive or anything. I don't know what it is about me. You know, some people just take a look at me and they judge me based on how I look or how I sound, my voice and everything. And to them, I was not attractive. And I was set to be a bachelor. You know, I had just gotten off a very bad relationship. I'm not going to talk about that today. But because of that relationship, I was like, if it takes all this to get married, then I can stay a bachelor. You know, I was telling myself, I can stay a bachelor. And so I was about to, live as a bachelor. I wasn't looking for any relationships or anything because, people. Let me just say, and this is not to make a broad statement. It's a general statement, but it's not everybody. A lot of you black ladies out there, y'all need to really evaluate yourselves, really. And it's not all the black women or anything like that. Look, I'm married to a black woman. But one of the main reasons why, I wanted to stay a bachelor because I got up with this lady. It was my first relationship. I hadn't had a relationship. My first relationship started in my mid-30s. I was in my mid-30s when I started my first relationship. And this lady, she was like, she thought she was all that and a bag of chips and whatever. And we had a relationship for like 4, 5, maybe 6 months. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I was doing fine before she came into my life. And she came in, messed up a lot of things. And I said, you know what? I can't do this. I cannot do this. But some friends of mine, they knew this other girl. And they said, oh, we know her. We know you. You all make a great couple. And they told me she was from Africa, from Liberia. And I was like, oh, no, because I knew a lot of, not all of them, not all African women, but a great deal of them. They had this high and mighty type of attitude. They were always about, going to college and you know, being a doctor and being a nurse and being a lawyer and all this kind of thing. And I was like, I said, look, I just got off a bad relationship. I said, I don't need this. I said, it's too much drama. I've been through enough drama when I was growing up, you know, and everything. I said, look, I cannot take this. They said, well, no, bro, just give her a try. You know, she's real nice and yada, yada, yada. And see, by this time I gotten, you know, I wasn't too trusting with folks. Because one of the things I've been burned, taken advantage of, you know, and people saying this and everything, and then it turns out to be something different. And I was like, you know, I'm not going through this. So they convinced me, come to this dinner party, and they said she's going to be there and yada, yada. And I said, okay, I'm going to give her one more chance. I said, after this, that's it. And so I go to this dinner party, meet the young lady. I'd seen her before, you know, someone had mentioned her to me before. Someone had mentioned her to me before, and you know, I seen her, and she was cute and everything, but I noticed she didn't smile too much. But the first thing that struck me about her when, you know, I went to this dinner party and everything was how she carried herself. She carried herself, I guess the word I'm saying was a little grace. And she was very, she carried herself like a lady, let me just say that. And I was like, oh, okay, I can, you know, she seems genuine. You know, she seems genuine and whatever. And you know, she wasn't you know, got the little chicken neck and everything and stuff like that. She wasn't that type of person. She wasn't loud. She wasn't boisterous. She wasn't full of herself. And before I knew it, you know, she had to go home and everything. And I felt like I missed my opportunity. And I was like, okay, well, that's it then. Okay, Mr. Bachelor. You know, because women just, they just didn't see me as attractive. They just didn't. For some, like I said, for some reason, you know, I've seen guys who I would feel don't look as attractive as I do, and they got all the women, you know. But for some reason, women just didn't like me. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, that's fine. You know, I'm good. So a couple of months later, I visited this friend, and she said, Vincent, so-and-so, you know, she's, you know, I can give you her number. You can call her. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know her like that. You know, I didn't get her, you know. I got to know a little bit about her, but I said, I don't know her like that. You know, so one Sunday, I got up and I said, you know what? I'm just going to throw everything on the line. I may have shared this story before, but I'm going to share it again because today is my anniversary. But I told myself, I said, I went to church that Sunday and I said, I'm going to throw everything on the line and I'm going to ask her out on a date. And she worked as a hostess, which is basically a female usher. And I came to her at the front of the sanctuary. I said, next Sunday, do you want to go out with me to eat? And someone told me that she liked Chinese food and she likes crab legs. And I said, we're gonna, you know, do you want to go out with me to eat? And she was like, okay. And so I'm walking away, and I'm sitting there like, yeah. And I said, wait a minute, did she just say yes? So I said, okay, you know, we'll see how this goes and everything. And I tried to play it cautious. I tried to play it real cautious, because I didn't want to just jump into something again. I just gotten off of a bad relationship less than a year earlier. And I was like, you know, I'm not going through the drama. But we went out, and she was, you know, we struck a conversation, got to know each other real well. And ladies, let me tell you all something, because I keep seeing these videos of women who get upset at their first date because they drive them to Cheesecake Factory. Which the Cheesecake Factory is not a bad place to have a date. Let me tell you that. But these women are mad because, you know, the man that they're dating takes them to the Cheesecake Factory. Now, let me tell you where my love interest and I had our first date. It was at a Chinese buffet. Wasn't a glamorous looking restaurant or anything. Chinese buffet. And we went there because they had all you can eat crab legs. I don't think they offer that in restaurants anymore. I don't think they offer that in restaurants anymore. But we went there because I was like, okay, she likes crab legs, and boy, she could tear up some crab legs. Let me tell you that. But we went there, struck a conversation. We left. We went to the local mall here, South Point Mall, and I wanted to take her to this place called the Marble Slab, where they make the ice cream cones and stuff like that. But it was a little bit expensive, and I said, okay, well, let's just go to McDonald's because they offer their ice cream cones are like $1, and we went there and just ate it up. But what I'm saying is, I didn't take her to some fancy restaurant when we first started dating, and she appreciated it. And the way she carried herself, you know, when we first went out, she was coming to the passenger side. I was like, oh no, I'm opening the door for my wife, or this person who could potentially be my wife. Let me just say that. And just so you know, I still do that today. I still open the door for my wife. There are exceptions, but I open the door for my wife when she gets into the car. And it's become such a habit that if I have another passenger, that I find myself going to the passenger side, opening the door. I'm like, wait a minute, you ain't my wife. But anyway, we started going out, and every week we would go out. I would call her and say, you want to go out here? Boom, boom, boom. She always said yes. And I was like, okay, so this kind of woman actually exists. A woman who is caught up in her femininity. Is that how you say it? Femininity? A woman who carries herself with grace and dignity, and it's not all about, you know, what you're going to do for me. And she used to live in a boarding house, and I would take her home, and when she would walk up the stairs, I'd be like, that's my wife right there. I don't know how it's going to happen, but she is my wife. That is the type of lady that will make a great wife. And people started noticing us going out. I never told anyone that, you know, it was only one person I told that this was a love interest, and that was my play mother. But I didn't tell anyone else. Everybody was, you know, and they noticed, and they were like, well, oh man, you know, one day they came up to my love interest. That's what she was at the time. And they asked her, oh, where's the ring? And you getting married in there? I never said anything about getting married or anything like that. I wanted to play it safe. Because like I said, you know, once bitten, twice shy. And I wanted to play it careful. But I liked the lady. I liked the girl. But what I didn't know was she was taking a liking to me too. And I didn't know this. And I was like, okay, is she feeling me or whatever, you know, and everything. And she would call me. She started calling me. I didn't call her. She would start calling me and wish me a good day and everything. And I thought it was just a good, you know, I really was into this girl, but I didn't want to get it out there and whatever. But things were obvious and everything. And it almost led to us breaking off our friendship because I did something real stupid. She was upset. And I told her, I said, you know, I just want us to be friends. And she hung up the phone. Boom. And I was like, what did I just do? I said, oh no, I didn't just do the friends thing. So I'm upset and, you know, I can't sleep and whatever. And so I called the church, you know, maybe get some prayer and whatever. And one of my friends, he worked as a security guard. He said, Vincent, so-and-so is right here right now. I was like, wait a minute, she's there? He said, yeah, let me let you talk to her. I was like, no. And so she gets on the phone and she said, you know, Vincent, I'm sorry. You know, I was just upset and everything. And whatever. I was just upset because people are talking and whatever and stuff like that. And I still didn't tell her I was interested in her. But after that, you know, a couple of days later, we went out on another date and everything, and things were fine. And I said, I don't want to lose her. I said, I would feel very foolish if I lost her. Because this girl is showing me that she is wife material. She definitely is. And I went back to this friend, and she said, Vincent, she really does like you. She really does. Now, once again, I'm not taking people's word for it because I'm not trusting the people's words like that. And I said, you know, one day I just got up and I said, you know what? Once again, I'm going to throw caution to the wind. And I went to the mall and I bought a wedding ring, an engagement ring. Didn't cost much. But I said, I'm going to get an engagement ring and I'm going to ask this woman to marry me. Because if I lose this one, someone needs to pop me upside the head. And we went to, well, I was going to propose to her in the church. Because we went to they had an athletic banquet. And I was going to propose at the athletic banquet, but I looked around and I said, there's too many people in here. I can't do it here. And so the next day we went to see the movie, The Passion of the Christ. And I think that movie took an edge off of me, emotional wise, but that movie was intense. And so me, her, and a friend, we went to dinner at another Chinese buffet. And on our way home, I said, do you want to go play Uno with me? She said, yeah. Went there, and I had 2 stacks of Uno cards. And I took the stack from the old Uno deck. And I wrote on there, it was a red number 5. Was a red number 5. And I just ripped off a piece of paper from this envelope. And I wrote on there, will you marry me? Because, you know, I don't know. I guess I was too much of a dweeb to, you know, just come straight out and tell her, you know. So I put it on the Uno card and I put it in the stack. And you could tell this Uno card was different because the back of it had a different design on it. And so we played Uno, and she happened to pick the card. You know, in Uno, there are times you have to draw cards, and she picked the card. She turned the card over, she read it, and at that moment I could have bought her for 10 cents. She saw it, And she had to catch her breath, and you know, she said yes. I went into my closet. The ring was in one of my jacket pockets, and I got down and I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and everything. And I went around telling everybody, hey, I'm getting married, I'm getting married. And some people were like, are you sure you want to marry this woman, you know, and everything. It didn't get the attention that I thought it would, you know, spread across the church. Ooh, Vincent's getting married, you know. But we got married. It was we got engaged on March the 6th, 2004. Exactly 8 months later, we got married on November the 6th, 2004. And I wasn't trying to rush into it. You know, I even told the pastor, I told him, I said, you know, we're going to wait a year and everything. He said, Vincent, you're going to wait a whole year? I was like, I don't need to wait a whole year. And I would find out later that my fiance at the time, she was like, I ain't want to wait a year. She wasn't rushing into it either. And let me tell you all something. During that engagement, we didn't hold hands. We didn't kiss. We didn't rub up on each other. We didn't go to bed or anything. None of that. And I even joked with her. I said, hey, you want to go to the bedroom right quick? She was like, nope. I said, come on, you sure? She said, nope. I said, oh yeah, she's a keeper. Because I knew I wasn't going to do anything with her. And by her saying that I said, okay, yeah, she's a keeper. So we didn't kiss and hug. And, you know, I remember one time we did hug because she bought me something. She bought me something. I just hugged her out of appreciation and everything. But it wasn't like, ooh, yeah. But we didn't hold hands or any of that stuff. People think I'm lying when I say that, but no, we didn't. And the day we got married, nice sunny day, whatever. And, you know, that was one of the best days of my life. And here we are 21 years later. And I'm not going into detail. I want to go into detail, but I don't have enough time for that and everything. But you look up and, you know, it's like, okay, we've been married a year now. Took a trip to Myrtle Beach for our first anniversary, which was phenomenal, which was great. And you look up, 2 years have passed, 5 years have passed, 10 years have passed, 15 years have passed, 20 years have passed, and now it's 21 years. And it really, and like I said, we've had our ups and downs, but it's been a nice ride. I've enjoyed this time of being a husband. Wish I could have been a father. Wish I could have had kids. But she has been my cheerleader, really. And she was telling me something, I think it was this year or last year, and I didn't notice this. She said, you know what? Every time I would come to your apartment, your stove was just so clean. She said, your stove was just so clean. I said, really? You noticed that? Because I don't like a dirty stove. I don't like a dirty stove. I really don't like a dirty house or whatever. Sometimes, I've, broken my own rule. But I don't like a dirty house. I like to keep the dishes washed, and I like to keep my stove clean. And that's something I do even to this day. As a man of the house, if I know something needs to be taken care of, and my wife is not able to do it, or I just want her to get some rest or whatever, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to clean the dishes. I'm going to clean the stove. For some reason, I haven't been cleaning the bathroom she does a good job of that. But really, I can clean a bathroom. I can use a vacuum cleaner. I know how to clean a house, And I remember one time she had gotten real sick. This was I don't even think it was 2 years after we got married. And I told her I'm going to go to the grocery store, get some groceries, and when I come back, I'm going to take care of the apartment. I'm going to, do whatever. I come back from the grocery store, homegirl done cleaned up everything. And I told myself, I said, I'm trying to spoil her, because she was, this lady, she is the epitome of the virtuous woman. She really is. She sees something that needs to be done, she gets it done. And that, some people might be like, well, you train her like that? No, she came like that. She was already like that. I remember one time she was on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor. I'm sitting there watching TV and she's just on her hands and I said, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing? She said, oh, I'm just cleaning the floor. I said, no, I married a wife, not a maid. I want you on your hands and knees cleaning the floor. So I bought a Swiffer. Because I didn't want her on her hands and knees and stuff like that. I was like, man, nah. Ain't no wife of mine gonna be on her hands and knees. But that's how she was raised. That's how she came. And eventually she said, this is the Swiffer. I just want a plain mop. So okay, I'll get you a plain mop. I thought the Swiffer would be better, but she liked the plain mop. And it's been, like I said, it's been an experience being married. I look at it, when I was coming up in school or whatever, never had a girlfriend. Came up in college, never had a girlfriend, and for some reason, like I said, the women just didn't find me attractive. To this day, and it's not me being vain or anything like that. To this day, I'm trying to figure out what it is about me that people, and I'm not just talking about the women, but guys, they will look at me and they go, he's retarded and everything and stuff like that. And I always wondered, what is it? Is it the way I look or something? Because I didn't think I looked that much different than anybody else. As a matter of fact, I seen some guys that I didn't think looked as good as I did, but they were getting all the girls and stuff like that. But, knowing that there is somebody out there for everybody, I really do believe that. But I didn't get her through prayer. I'll be honest with you. Because I was like, I'm through with the whole thing or whatever. Some people say you got to believe God and, believe God for your wife and everything and stuff like that. I didn't believe God to get married. I didn't. I was like, I just want to stay out of that. And then she pops up and everything and we hit it off and here we are 21 years later. Now we do have an extra mouth to feed. We got a cat now, so, but I guess that cat is our daughter, the little female cat. We need to teach her to stop scratching and biting, but she's a kitten right now, so. But anyway, folks, marriage is not about fulfilling yourself. It's not about getting out of it what you can get. It's a mutual partnership. And with God in the midst of that partnership, your marriage can't go anywhere else but up. Make sure God is in your marriage. Make sure of that. And folks, make sure you have the right mentality. See, a lot of times people want, that I hear some ladies saying, I'm someone's good thing and everything, and I tell them, no, you're not. But you need to prepare yourself for, if you want to get married, you need to prepare yourself for whoever your mate is going to be. You cannot be selfish and be married. You just cannot. When you get married, it's not about me. What is he going to do for me? What is she going to do for me? You cannot be selfish and be married. You just cannot. It is not going to work. And I'm pretty sure there are some people who thought, I give Vincent 2 years, but here it is 21 years later. I remember I ran into this lady who used to go to my church, and she said, "Hey, Vincent, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing okay." I said, "You and your wife still together?" And I wanted, and it kind of hit me. I was like, "What do you mean we're still together?" "Yeah, we're still together." I don't know if she thought that we were broken up or anything because she didn't see my wife with me or something like that. But no, as far as I know, there's no signs of breakup or anything. But you can't be selfish being married. It's not about what you can get out of it from the other person. And this is what I tell so many people. Get yourself out the way. Realize that you're bringing another person into your life. Y'all got different personalities coming together. Yes, marriage is a give and take. It's not a take. It's a give and take. Give and take. I give, I take. She gives, she takes. And one thing I learned about marriage too, I hear a lot of people when they get married, they say, "I need my space." I'm gonna be honest with you. When the Bible says that the two become one flesh, what do you mean you need your space? Your space is with your spouse. That's how I see it. Now, I could be wrong when I say that and everything, but that's just how I see it. But anyway, I might do a part 2 on this one too. I might do a part 2, but I gotta get to work and everything. But you all stay safe out there. Stay safe, stay healthy. This is Vincent E. Brown. I'm signing off. Until the next time, I'll see you on the rebound.